Yeah, this is just one of those days. I got to remind myself as I go through this, find the light, find the light. Because if you haven't figured it out by now, all I try to do here with the podcast and the live stream with Wicked Wisdom and Wicked Radio is take all these crazy, insane news stories, right? That's everything the world is throwing at us. And let's face it, it's never been crazier. It's just insane. And try to guide myself first, but a lot of you through this insanity. And like I said, find the light. Like that's the mantra I have running through my head when all this crazy crap comes my way. All of us, I'm not special, but if there's anything that I provide is over my time, there's been a lot of news stories that have come across my desk or laptop or whatever you want to call it, right? I've covered a lot of this stuff in my time in radio and on here and other social media, whatever it is. So if there's anything I can provide is to look through all this stuff and find what's maybe not good, but try to make some sense of all this stuff. And this is one of those days, and I'm just telling you, we're going to have to work extra hard today to find the light, but we're going to have to with all this crap going on today. And, of course, we're going to talk about the New York City shooting. Interesting, no less horrifying, but really interesting updates on this whole thing and how CNN tried to cover this. It was just laughably insane. We'll talk about that as well. But also a Cincinnati update, the city of Cincinnati and how they're covering this thing with the mob attack. I hate to tell you I told you so. Just kidding. I love telling you I told you so. It's exactly how we knew this was going to go down. And this is why the federal authorities are now, if you want something that'll make you feel better about this, the federal authorities are stepping in. Because apparently the leadership of the city of Cincinnati, not to pick on them, but people who live there know, it is pathetic, man. And it's probably an indication of how a lot of mid-sized cities and large cities are throughout the country. Because they are just, boy, they couldn't have handled this any worse. And for some laughs, now it'll drive you crazy, but at the end of it, you got to laugh at the lunatics, the off-the-left cliff lefty lunatics, who I now intentionally will call uglies. There's a reason why. How they're attacking American Eagle brand jeans and Sydney Sweeney because they hate beauty. It's that simple. I mean, they just do. It's unbelievable, the reaction to this thing. So hopefully we can turn that into some laughs, but of course we're going to update you. Before we get into that, some business. Thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream. If you're watching or listening later on, thanks for the follows. Audio podcast people right now, please also press subscribe. I will love you forever. Friend forever if you do. That way you know on whatever platform you're on when the new episodes are out. So appreciate you being here. All right, little story time from the personal world of Wicked Willie here. So we dropped off our daughter. I've told you the story many times. She goes to school, finishing up college in Manhattan. And you're thinking right now, why'd you do that? I know. Dropped her off. My wife and I are coming back from the airport. And it sucks anyway, you send a kid off to college. So it's emotional anyway. We sit down to have a little bit of dinner to try to calm things down. And I'm looking at the headlines, of course, that pop up on my phone. Midtown Manhattan shooting. Gunman enters building. Goes to 33rd floor. And God almighty. Midtown. Guess where she is? Yeah, exactly. And I've actually gotten some comments from you guys, too, over this. And I understand it. I totally understand where you're coming from. Because believe me, I've gone through this in my head, too. We all have. Why would you send your daughter to that shithole? I've said the exact same thing. Well, when she started school, it was bad. Not as bad as it is right now. But also, and just throwing Cincinnati into the mix here, it's bad everywhere. It's bad everywhere. Does that give me extra concern? Of course it does. Have we talked about this? Of course we have, obviously. But we'll get the update of this lunatic who apparently came from Vegas, walked into a building in Midtown Manhattan, somehow got up to the 33rd floor and shot a bunch of people. There are a bunch of fatalities. Let's just go to, and this was quite amazing if you didn't see the thing. I watched the whole thing to get the details. But the update from the New York Police Department Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who seems to be doing a really good job. She gave this update on pretty much all of it to describe the whole situation, and it is horrific.
Mr. Tamura has a documented mental health history. His motives are still under investigation, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location. 345 Park Avenue is a commercial office building whose tenants include the NFL, Rudin Management, KPMG, and Blackstone. At this time, 4 of the 5 victims are deceased, including our NYPD cop.
Horrifying, just absolutely horrifying, as everybody agrees. And they were putting the information together, and they were IDing this guy. More on the ID in a second, because that got laughably ridiculous. So the guy, here's the first update here. Here's the first thing that's ridiculous. So the guy that most likely is going to be the new mayor of New York because he won the Democratic primary, usually, at least history telling you anything, the guy that wins or woman that wins the Democratic primary becomes the mayor of New York City. We've talked about him. Zohran Mamdani. He was not in New York. He's in Ghana I think it's, I don't know, whatever. He's out of the country. It was part of his honeymoon, whatever. He sent out a crocodile tears statement, post about, supporting the cops and blah, 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 like this. This is why I say it's crocodile tears. Here's just cherry-picked a couple of post tweets from Mamdani. We don't need an investigation to know the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. We need to defund the police. Really. It's a guy that may be mayor. Second one, just cherry-picking. No, we want to defund the police. Okay, so that's the guy that's probably going to be mayor. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that something? Find the light. Again, it's my mantra. Through all these crazy stories, we're all affected by them these days, because when something does happen in a major city, the major city of the States, it just is, of our country. You may not be a fan of New York City, but what happens there affects all of us. It just does. That's why this is concerning. But have you noticed something? Maybe you didn't want to pay as close attention to this as I did yesterday, for a couple of different reasons, personal and professional for this, as I said. Have you noticed something, though? You may get a sense of this today. Now, of course, there was the usual run-of-the-mill calls for gun control that always happens every time there's a mass shooting. That, of course, it always says. For the first time that I've ever really seen in one of these cases, honestly, you know what drowned out the calls for gun control? Maybe it'll change today, but at first, drowned out the calls? I personally have never quite seen such a call for funding and supporting the police, like from everybody. Major calls for this, the exact opposite of what this potential future mayor of New York City has called for. A massive amount of support for police officers because one of theirs was killed along with this stuff. Massive call for this. Amazing. So that was interesting. And that actually may be a very, very positive thing, because there's already just normal people who usually would never chime in on this thing are saying, okay, he's walking with this rifle into the building, clear as day. The most common call is, if there were more cops in the street, they probably would have stopped him in his tracks. It's hard to argue with. So that's been the first, I would call it a good thing. I'm putting that in the good category, right? Find the light throughout all this. More of a call for supporting the police. So if the people in that city have had enough, and this nutcase does get elected mayor who's calling for defund the police, may not be able to get away with it, because more people will push for supporting police officers. So that's the first good thing. There's also an update that just came across, like literally minutes before we went live this morning. And this is interesting. And I think it's coming from Adam Schefter, who was an NFL reporter for ESPN, because the NFL is housed in this building where the guy went. So that's kind of the connection there. Now, ESPN is connected to ABC, which is why Adam Schefter wrote, again, just minutes ago as we're here on live. The 27-year-old man who allegedly shot and killed 4 people in a Midtown office building on Monday carried a note in his pocket claiming he suffered from CTE, concussion syndrome, and asking that his brain be studied, police sources told ABC News. Very interesting. So maybe that is the connection there. But will we ever find a true cause, a true motive? Who knows? We rarely ever do. Find the light. Maybe the positive thing that comes out of this is more people in that city and across the country not so much calling for gun control. I mean, that's always going to come up. People are always going to shout for that. But they're getting shouted down by more support for police officers and funding them. Not defunding, but funding them than I've ever seen. So maybe, find the light. Maybe that's the light in this. And you got to laugh, too, at CNN for whatever few viewers they still have left. This is the reason why. Now, we've all seen, and I posted it on the Billboard post teasing that the live stream, what we're going to talk about in the live stream here today. I posted that just a few minutes ago in real time. There's a picture everywhere of this suspect. that we know was the shooter. Picture was everywhere because security cameras are everywhere, especially in a place like Midtown Manhattan with all the security cameras and the tall buildings, and it's a business section, right? A lot of media buildings there too. Everybody saw, clear as day, if you have two working eyeballs, what this guy looked like, right? Now, this is important. The picture had already been out there on social media and, this is key, shown on CNN by the time their chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, get it again, their law enforcement and intelligence analyst, CNN, brought this guy on their panel to talk about the news story. Keep in mind, like I said, the picture of the suspect had already been seen worldwide by the time he said this, but felt the need to get this out anyway. Here he is. His name is John Miller, talking about, well, what do we know about the suspect?
They do not know who he is.
Okay.
They know he is a male, possibly white. He's wearing sunglasses. He appears to have a mustache. And that picture has been distributed to every police officer in New York City.
Yes, John, that picture. Nobody who's not blind couldn't see that there's no way that the guy is white. I mean, this is just laughable at this point. But they still felt the need anyway in there to get in the description, as they always do. Of course, John Miller, they don't know who he is, but he's a male, possibly white. And everybody in real time looked at this and said, there's no, what? There's no way the guy, no, he's not white. No, it's not white. But still, it tells you everything you need to know about CNN and mainstream media. But they still felt the need to get that out there. They're just lying fools. There's no other way to describe them. Have you ever heard them say in any of these horrific incidents where they don't know much, they haven't ID'd the suspect yet? Have you ever heard them say, looks as though he's a male, mid-20s, possibly black? They never say that, but they felt the need to anyway. So this is why nobody trusts the media anymore. Wow. All right. Well, that's where we are on that. Find the light. Maybe the light is more calls for support for police officers after this. Maybe that city has finally had enough. Maybe people across the country have finally had enough, and we'll hope so anyway. But thank God for social media for getting the truth out there, certainly before CNN did. We'll update you as we go, because that's an interesting update from Adam Schefter and the CTE angle. Hadn't seen that before just a couple of minutes ago. Speaking of social media, I hate to say I told you so. Just kidding. I love saying I told you so, but I knew this was coming. The response from the city of Cincinnati officials yesterday was as pathetic as, at least I thought. I'm sure you thought too. You know, the beatdown, the beating. They're still calling it the fight. The fight among adults in the street from early Saturday or Sunday morning, whatever it was in Cincinnati, where the white couple was put into the hospital in critical condition, beaten by a mob of, it's relevant to the story, so I'll say it, a mob of 20-plus black individuals, adults, beating them to a pulp. Yeah, but they're calling it still a fight. A fight happened. No, that was attempted murder is what happened. That's what happened there. Well, I've heard this from people who live in the area, who know Cincinnati, and they've said that this has been going on for years because the leadership in the city is absolutely, completely pathetic, which I suspected too, and now I completely understand why. They're upset at social media and how they're covering this. Understand, again, like we said yesterday, we wouldn't even know the story. It wouldn't have even gotten out there where people outside of the Cincinnati market are talking about it. We wouldn't have even known about this. Never would have gotten any, it didn't even get any coverage deep into Monday until finally enough people, until it was trending so highly that they had to cover it. That's the only reason why they did. And yet they're mad at social media. Okay, well, here's why this kind of stuff happens. Here's the Cincinnati vice mayor. They caught her on the street to get her comments on it. This is how these kinds of incidents, where a middle-aged couple, can get beaten to the edge of death because of pathetic leadership like this in cities like this across the country. This is why it happens. What's her take on it? Is it horrible? Is she praying for the victims? No. She's mad at the coverage because it doesn't represent their city. And again, this is how she describes it. Adults fighting. Now, they weren't fighting. There wasn't much fight on the other side. It was attempted murder is what it was. But anyway, here's the vice mayor.
But the conversation turns to this one incident, adults fighting at 3 a.m. This is not who we are.
This isn't, no, it's exactly who you are. It's exactly what you are, because you've allowed this kind of thing. And you allowed this by doing exactly that, not calling it for what it is, not calling it for a pack of cackling savages attacking and trying to kill a middle-aged couple. That's exactly what it is. But she's mad at the coverage of it because it's not who we are. No, it's exactly who you are. Exactly. Here's another reason why it happens. The Cincinnati police chief, not sure of her name, I don't think it matters at this point, but she had her press conference and she's mad too. She's upset. She's all kinds of upset. You know why? What is she most upset at? She's upset at social media and she's upset at journalism for covering this story the way it is. She was big mad, all kinds of upset. I hear this lady, where you're about to hear now, this police chief of Cincinnati, and you understand exactly why bigger heads are coming in to investigate this. She's probably really mad because the FBI is taking over and the federal attorney general's office is taking over, because these people in this city are pathetic. Not to pick on Cincinnati, but you probably know exactly what we're talking about here with these people. These are people in charge of your city. Here's the police chief. This lady shouldn't be anywhere near law enforcement.
Social media and journalism, and the role it plays in this incident.
Oh.
And yes, guys, that's you. That is you.
She's pointing fingers.
Social media, the post that we've seen, does not depict the entire incident. That is one version of what occurred.
What other version do you need to see? You've got people still in critical condition, this older couple, and apparently now the story is out there were other targeted white people at the Cincinnati Jazz Festival that are also very, very hurt. What else? What version do you need to see? What version are you trying to put out there, lady? What is it? But she's not upset at the state of the city, the conditions her city are in, that her residents feel, that one of her major events where this took place, she's upset that people found out about it. She's upset at especially social media. Like I said, we wouldn't even know the story unless people had actually seen this, picked up on it, and commented on it and demanded some kind of a change. But she's upset at that. Not upset that the city is in such a condition that her police force can't protect citizens. No, innocent citizens. And again, puts out that very targeted, very deliberate word, adults fighting. Yes, that's not a fight. Call it for what it is. Okay, not an official charge, so you can't say it, but we all know what it is. This was attempted murder. They wanted to kill this couple and other people. That's exactly what it is. And cities like that aren't going to change until you've got officials that want to call it what it is. You've got to identify the problem before you start to fix the problem. But no, there were adults fighting, and she's mad at social media. Right. But it's okay. Again, this is my mantra. Find the light. Find the light. Be positive about something. And this is the I told you so part. Remember yesterday I was saying the good news is the Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon is in on this. She's like, no, unacceptable. She already commented on it, which is probably why the cop is so upset. The FBI now is taking over the investigation. That's why that's why she's really upset. But also this, as I said yesterday, there's a guy running for governor in Ohio. He'll chime in on it, and he did more than that. He talked to one of the victims, or at least talked to the family of one of the victims. Vivek Ramaswamy, remember him running for president? Even if you don't like him, you got to like this response. It's exactly what he should do. I spoke to Holly earlier today. You're thinking, who's Holly? Well, she was the woman tragically assaulted in Cincinnati this weekend, he writes. She's a single working mom who went to a friend's birthday party. And we all know what happened after that. Goes on to say, and I won't read the whole thing, it's long, hardworking Americans shouldn't have to worry for their safety when having a good time in our cities. She said not a single local or state official had yet reached out to her, except for him. Nobody. So none of those people, not that stupid vice mayor or that stupid police chief, reached out to her at least to find out how the victims are. Not even that. Not even that. They were too busy being mad at social media and calling it a fight among adults in the street. That's their response. Goes on to say, of course, it becomes a campaign issue. As governor, I'll make sure they're behind bars, not running wild. Our cops will have the green light to restore order. No apologies. Holly appreciates the kind words. Good move for him. Tactical move, but also a human move. Reach out to the victim on this. Good for you. Good for you, Vivek. Good job. I told you would. And the FBI's taken over on that. But that kind of stuff happens everywhere. So see, there's your answer to your question. It's like I said, I've heard that from you guys personally. Why in the world would you send your daughter to college in New York City? And I get that because that's the question I ask myself all the time too. Is that so different? Is it so different from medium-sized cities like Cincinnati or pick any other one? The same everywhere. But if we want to find something positive, there's a call for change. And it may just happen. So let's hope so. All right. For laughs, this is going to drive you crazy at first. But again, what's the mantra? What's the theme today? Find the light. Find the light. Have you seen the American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney? The very pretty, I'll call her hot, actress in an American Eagle ad. The first takeaway on this is, wow, this is like gone completely full scale. The first thing you should feel positive about is beauty is back. She's a beautiful girl. Even though there's a bunch of nerds on social media, like a lot of young dudes going out of the way to launch this campaign saying she's not hot. What? Maybe not your cup of tea, but you're telling me she's not pretty? Look up Sydney Sweeney if you don't know who I'm talking about, and you tell me. This is a bunch of nerds. Go outside, put down the video game controller if you don't think Sydney Sweeney is hot, because you got a problem. Anyway, she's in an American Eagle ad for jeans. And it kind of harkens back to the old, remember the Brooke Shields ads? You know, now compare this to American Eagle just a couple of years ago. It was all the woke nonsense and they don't want to offend anybody and was weak and meaningless and blah, blah, blah. This is overt, true, sexuality. It's true. God knows that's a tradition in American advertising. I get it. But this is what the ad, unfortunately not a visual, sorry, we're mostly of an audio thing here. But this is what the ad sounds like anyway in the campaign. Sydney Sweeney, American Eagle jeans, and the ad.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color.
And
my genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very jeans.
I mean, it even seemed like an ad from the 80s and 90s. It's like that's overt sexual. Of course that's what they're pushing. Of course they are. Of course they. Like hotness is back in America advertising. If you haven't watched TV for a while, like check it out. Like let's get this a distinct difference. Beauty is back. Promoting feminine beauty is definitely making a return. But, and here's the funny part. That's going to drive you crazy at first. But again, find the light. Look at the positive in this because now we can laugh at them. So this elicited such an insane response. When I first started seeing it, I had to laugh out loud. I mean, they are so far gone. They are so nuts on the off the left wing cliff side of things. Know exactly what they said there. It's a play on words. My genes passed down, genetics. Well, my genes are blue. Ha, ha, ha. It's all they meant to do with it, right? It's supposed to be senseless, sexy, overt, in your face, kind of like the old school ads, like the Brooke Shields ad is what it's supposed to be. Wasn't the Brooke Shields thing? Nothing comes between me and my Calvins, you know, right? Moms were upset at the time, but it got attention and it got traction. Well, this is a different age. Now we have these twisted people who are so broken in their heads. This is true. They're making the connection. Not me saying this. This is out there. The lefty loons are making the connection that the American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney, you ready? Is promoting fascism. Now, why? You're asking yourself why? Because she's a pretty white girl. Of course it is. Of course that's what it is. Now, I cherry-picked this. It could be anything. Could be anything. Anybody. Pick thousands, maybe tens of thousands videos of likes, and they're all saying the same thing. Here's one particular lunatic. I don't even know who it is. But here's the kind of reaction I'm talking about. Don't get upset. Laugh at these people because they hate beauty. Here they are.
Totally just talking about denim, right? Just a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman explaining how her good genes gave her personality and purity. I mean, are we really going to pretend that this isn't a little fashy-coded? Look, I'm not saying that Sydney Sweeney personally wrote this ad to revive the Third Reich, but American Eagle absolutely knew what they were doing here.
To revive the Third Reich? I'm sorry. This is the funniest thing I've seen all day, or heard anyway. It's a jeans ad. We just got to pretend it's not. I love this. There's a new adjective, too, for they never even heard of fascism before 2 years ago. We're kind of pretend it's not fashy. This was pointed out to me by another child of mine. We're talking about the Sydney Sweeney thing, and I actually asked her, why do all these nerds Why do all these lunatics hate Sydney Sweeney? And she said it so perfectly. She goes, Dad, people hate a pretty girl. And isn't that true? And that's overt. That's directly intentional because it's her. Because it was some sort of an ugly, promoting these jeans. No one would have a problem with it. It could have the same copy points. It could have the same, language in the ad, the same verbiage. If it was somebody that's typically ugly, nobody would have a problem. But they hate this and they hate Sydney Sweeney because she's pretty. That's exactly what he is. So, because of that, because of the reaction, because they are intentionally hating her, they directly hate Sydney Sweeney because she's pretty, I'm going to call now, every chance I get, to call the people who lash out at this stuff and actually make a connection between fascism and jeans. I'm going to call them uglies, because they are. They hate themselves, they're ugly inside and out, and they hate anything that's beautiful or traditionally considered beautiful. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call them uglies. So there's your win. There's your light. Laugh at these fools. That's what you do. God, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that was an actual post. Somebody actually turned on their camera and made a connection that the American Eagle jeans, a play on the word jeans, is fascist. Just laugh at them, guys. You have to laugh or you'll become crazy like them. They're uglies inside and out. Don't let them make you crazy. All right, find the light. That has been our theme today, and sometimes you have to. And maybe the takeaway is, with all this craziness, all this crap that they throw at us in the news these days, there seems to be, anyway, if you look for it hard enough, if you work extra hard, you can find the call for sanity, because more people than ever are calling for sane things, like not the craziness. Like, there's more of a call now to fund the police than ever. So let's make it happen anyway. Tomorrow has to have better headlines. I mean, good God. Hopefully there's less craziness we have to unravel and make sense of tomorrow. But regardless of what it is, what's in the headlines, we don't determine the headlines. I just react to it and try to guide you through it. That's all I do. We'll talk about it tomorrow for midweek. But in the meantime, thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream, listening or watching later on the replay. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate you as always. New audio listeners right now, make sure when you're done listening, press subscribe so you know when the future episodes are coming out. And that's all audio platforms too. So thanks for being here. Remember, find the light. We'll talk to you tomorrow.